This is the Tabernacle Podcast with John Vermillion and me, Britton Bishop. What's up, John?
I am full bore into the post-soccer season depression.
Yeah. Texted you the other day. I knew.
Thanks, man.
I don't know if this is going to come out next week. It's coming. Whether it's in 4 weeks at the end of a Ford Field game or this Friday, but every week is temporary now. And I'm in that stage of football season where I love it. I love being out there, but it's a long commitment.
Yeah.
And there's a part of you that is excited to be done at 4 o'clock one day and just come home or hang out with my wife or whatever. But there's that competitor in you that's like, I want to do this forever.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah. And I would be lying if I didn't say there's a part of me that's like that little relief because it is a long commitment. It's long hours. I'm grateful for our church that sees it as part of my personal ministry to be able to be out there and coach boys in the fall, girls in the spring at Buckley High School varsity soccer teams. But it just hit me 2 days after. Like I woke up and I texted my assistant coaches, and it was this article. Like I texted them an article. I went full my mom, right? You know how you get a text from mom, and it's like, why? That might have been an email,
right?
But it was entitled "Second Sucks."
Yeah,
and we were second in the preseason tournament. We were second in the conference. We were second in the district, and third I can live with.
Yep.
Because third, it's like, man, we weren't even in the top.
Yeah.
But when you're second and it's close, and then you start looking.
And you beat that first place team.
Oh, yeah, you beat that first place team, and then you couldn't get
As
out
a competitor, I'm always interested in this. When you lose to a team in the postseason, do you instantly become that team's biggest fan in the sense of at least hopefully we can say we lost to the best?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay. Just depends on who it is.
It just depends. Yeah. Like last year, because it doesn't matter the sport in the postseason, someone's going to go away disappointed. There's only one team that's not going to leave disappointed.
Everybody. Yeah. You ain't first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last, man. But so like last year we lost to the eventual state champions. And so it's like, we lost to the eventual state champions.
We're pretty much second place.
Yeah, but no, because they smoked us. They smoked us. I don't even want to say the score publicly. It was bad.
Yeah.
But this year we lost 1-0. 1-0. And it was an own goal. Oh, it was an own goal. And it wasn't the kid's fault. I mean, the kid was doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. He was tracking back, and
just one of those.
Audience doesn't care.
No, they don't. Yeah. But they do care about who this incredible gentleman.
We do care. Yeah, this finely dressed gentleman to my right. Dressed. Look at this man.
Right. What's up, boss? How you doing, Adam?
Good.
We are joined today by the one and only Adam Sharp, next-gen pastor here at the Buckley campus. You've been on here once or twice?
Twice.
Twice. It's your third time.
Yep.
So did part of your Change Life story. We talked about student ministry one episode.
Yep.
And now this one. Before we jump into this, though, John, I just have a question for you.
Go for it.
I didn't ask you this beforehand, but it's something Adam and I were talking about today, and I'm just interested.
I don't like where this is going.
No.
If the Bash Brothers were talking about it beforehand and involved me, we might have to edit this.
I have one question. And I'm legitimately curious. There's no passive aggressiveness in this towards anybody listening.
Yeah.
But at a church like ours, this isn't anything what we're talking about today. A church like ours, we have people that come on the weekends. We have a ton of families. What do you think is the reason that we have families that come to our church that have students, 7th through 12th grade, that don't plug into our student ministries?
Oh, man.
I'm just curious. And if there's somebody listening, maybe I just don't know, and you're the lead pastor, maybe I shouldn't ask you this right now. We can talk about it later. But it's something that ever since we said it, I haven't stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me say to you and to our audience, I love the fact that you're asking that question because Tabernacle family, you need to know we have student ministry pastors that want your kids. They want to be with your kids. They want to minister to your kids. They want to invest in your kids, and it's not for your own glory. No. You guys have better things to do than to be hanging out with students, but you love students, you love Jesus more, and you want all of them. Yeah. You want the ones that come to our church, you want the ones that don't come to our church. That's the attitude that we're about. And so in answer to your question, just having been a student ministry pastor before, the answer varies.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest thing is parents want to be their kids' friends.
Right.
And And, if the kid is kind of like me, doesn't really want to go anywhere, then they're like, well, my kid's special and unique. He doesn't need community. He doesn't need to be invested in. Or it could be the parent doesn't want to make the drive.
Right.
One of the challenges that we have, and you guys know this, is being a regional church. And what I mean by that is people come from all over the Northwest Michigan region, not just Buckley or Manistee, but as far away as Traverse City, Manton, Lake City, Houghton Lake, Cadillac, you name it. There's some people that are like, well, we'll go there as a family for church, but we're not going to travel all the way down there on a Wednesday night.
That's a good point.
But I still don't think that's an excuse. Because I lived in a big city, and it took 25, 30 minutes to get anywhere.
Yeah. It was just legitimate curiosity. We were talking about
Why do you guys think?
I don't know. I think just the more I look at our student ministry demographic, more often than not, I would say Manistee, and I think Buckley, the statistics would show this too. I would say 80% of our Wednesday night attendants are not kids that come to our church on the weekends.
And I don't understand that.
And I think a part of it is, one, like kids don't want to go, and so it's like, it's fine. But I think the thing too that we're seeing, like, you say like, if they're like me and they're just like, I don't want to do anything. We see that with our kids this generation, especially now, because they can find everything at home, whatever that might be.
Computer,
and there's a thing about community that I think is important, of just getting around other people. And any of the kids that don't want to go, that finally go, usually are the kids that end up loving it and want to be there. I think the other piece too is there's just that idea of Sundays we get filled up, and that Wednesday hitter or whatever that might be just feels unnecessary. And that's where I think I really try to communicate to parents the importance of specialized content for their teenagers.
Which is what you guys do.
Yeah, because like on the weekends, we do a good job as a teaching team of hitting on like, hey, students, this could be a practical example for you. But a majority of the time, we're talking to adults.
Because that's the majority of the audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you come on a Wednesday night, here's the thing that most people need to know. It's not Mountain Dew and pizza. It's not a waste of time for your kid. Like Adam and I are notorious for being the quote unquote not fun youth pastors from the standpoint of like, we exposit the Bible. That's all we do. We teach Scripture. We preach the gospel every week. There's an opportunity to know Jesus at the end of every sermon. And then we have small groups where we talk about it. But I think maybe, too, some people have like a misconception of what student ministry or quote-unquote youth group is, as it's just a fun thing that our kid can go do. And if we're busy, then they don't need to be there. But I would lobby for it's probably outside of what you're doing in your home as a parent, it is the second most important part of your child's discipleship. What is it, before the age of 18? You said the statistic today, 90?
It's like high 80s at least percent.
High 80s, 90% of Christians decide whether they'll follow Jesus or not before the age of 18.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's a priority. And we're just curious, and it doesn't come out of a heart of we need more numbers so we look more impressive, but it's just like, man, we have a lot of kids that go to this church that I see on the weekends that I don't know. And obviously, we're trying to get to know them and stuff, but I don't know.
So I'll give you one more, and this is from my experience, and I suspect that this is a demographic, is especially in Buckley, and this is no reflection on you. When I first founded the firehouse back in the day, and we started a student ministry here, we were drawing a ton of kids, and most of them were not from church. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in a staff meeting as the youth pastor, and I asked that same question. And across from me was an administrator at the time. She's no longer in the area, friend of ours, a friend of my wife and I both, and love their family. And she had like 5 or 6 kids, and they were all homeschooled. And 3 of them were youth group age. And finally I was like, you guys are, like, you work here and your kids don't come to youth group. Like, I called her out. I was like, what is that about? And I want to know what I'm doing wrong. Right. And she was like, no, it's not you. It's not student ministry, but the kids you're attracting, I just don't want my kids around them. And I was like, all right, so I'm in the firehouse, sometimes with 80, 90, 100 kids, most of whom are abject pagans. Mm-hmm. And the Christian kids don't want to be there. And I'm sitting here going, send me your little, journaling, whatever, strong Christian, and help me change the demographic.
Yes.
Right.
Like, just come and be a part. Come and help me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it got amped up.
Yeah.
The very next youth group, her husband came and stood in the back. And I'm like, and he, had that Adam Sharp look, like
Right.
he was planning to kill me all the time, just that resting assassin face. And then I asked him after, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just checking it out. And he was like, my kids will be here next week. And he goes, I'm volunteering to just be security. And I was like, thank you. And there was a 180-degree shift.
That's cool.
But I do think there's some people that are like, there's a lot of rough kids, and it's like all the more reason for your kid to be there. Especially if you send your kids to public school anyways.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're not going to send them to the youth group where they're talking about God,
Right.
So I don't.
Yeah.
That was a rant.
It was, and I was just
That was our
curious.
commercial
I was
for the
just-
episode.
Yeah, I was just curious. It's legitimately bred out of pure curiosity and desire to see our next generation of the Tabernacle know Jesus. That's it. That's the heart that Adam and I have.
Most churches, they get the church kids, and the student ministry struggles to get the unchurched kids.
Yep.
At our church, it's always been the opposite,
Yep.
and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's this generation. I don't know if it's our DNA. I don't know. It's probably fear
Yeah.
or laziness.
Yep.
Or busyness.
Yeah.
Fear, laziness, or busyness. And all three of those, good luck with those when you stand before God someday. So, yeah.
Love it.
Sorry, did I say that?
Yes, you did, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Don't edit that, please.
What up, Adam?
What's up?
Welcome to it.
Thank you.
Excited you're here. John texted me yesterday in the midst of Halloween party planning, and I was like, oh, crap, what are we going to talk about? And there's been a lot of people that have just reached out to me via text or conversation or whatever on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they've been asking, like, hey, we really love the podcast. We love Change Life Stories. We love the topical things, the questions men ask, and all of that. But they said, man, one of my favorite segments is when you guys just study the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, man, we haven't done that in a minute because we did it through Luke. And I think that's when people really started liking it. And so I was like, man, let's jump in, do a little Fight Club podcast, just get after it. But I texted John. I was like, well, if we're going to do Fight Club, we need to get a couple guys. And so obviously the default was you.
Thanks.
Because we're the Bash
I'm
Brothers.
already here.
Yeah.
Oh. No,
So
glad to
sweet.
be here. Thank you.
So today we're going to jump into the book of 1 John. I think when during COVID, we had an underground fight club that met via in person. I'm not going to name any of the people that were in it or sat at a table, but I think some of them might be in this room. But I think we were studying the book of 1 John. If I don't,
Did you wear masks?
I don't know. Did we? Who was it? Where were we? What church was it? We were at Bayview. No. But I think we were studying the book of 1 John, but I don't remember.
John? Did we do 1 John?
No.
Can
I don't
neither
think we
confirm
did.
nor deny. Maybe it was
No.
just one of those bunny trails that lasted 4 weeks.
It could have been. It could have been. I don't
So-
think we did 1 John.
Sweet. Well, we'll jump into 1 John, and those of you listening, if you go to a Tab Women group or you're a part of a fight club or whatever you're a part of, if you're at a church, this is how we do it. So we're
This is how we do it. Come on, man. Victoria, you listening? I'm just trying to get in the band.
He's
Love it.
auditioning.
Yes.
Every lead pastor thinks he's in the band.
So this is what
I want to be Vicky or David's hype man during praise
you could do that.
with a towel.
Just
You
up
just
there.
be like,
just
praise
just
him.
be like Alistair Begg and just stand behind them.
No,
It's
I'm
your
not
service.
doing it.
It's your
Begg and
service. He
Furtick.
said so.
The only thing that Stephen Furtick and Alistair Begg have in
In
They
common.
both stand.
completely different theologically.
And Alistair
completely
Begg just thumps the piano.
he
and
just
stands
he's got
there.
a thumb on the piano. We saw it. Man.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Begg
Well,
is the man.
Yes.
what's it say? I'm not reading out loud. So Adam, it's all you. Chapter 1.
All right. What was
Maybe-
from?
Maybe
Oh.
maybe to verse 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good
Because
natural
if he goes
stopping
real
place.
long, then I'm gonna forget, and I'm gonna,
Yeah.
Verse 4.
like when you're in Fight Club and you read a long passage, and the guy starts with the thing at the end,
Yes.
and you're like, wait, we got to go back to the
Which,
beginning.
hey, while we're talking about that, I think for some people listening to this, because I've been a part of fight clubs that like we'll do 2 verses,
Yeah.
and then I hear about fight clubs or Tab Women groups that like, no, we chunked out 2 chapters. I'm like, whoa,
How did you do that?
And so maybe if you're leading one of those, you're a part of one, suggest to your leader, hey, let's take it down a little bit. Let's do a
Slow
couple
down.
verses. So first 4 verses, Adam.
All right. What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have observed and touched with our hands, concerning the word of life. That life was revealed, and we have seen it, and we testify and declare to you the eternal life that was with the Father and was revealed to us. What we have seen and heard, we also declare to you, so that you may also have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We are writing these things so that our joy may be complete.
So that's what it says. What's it mean, fellas?
So full disclosure, none of us prepped for this.
No.
Which is
how you're-
also
yep.
how we do Fight Club.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that think, we come to Fight Club, or there's times that you might prepare, but usually, at least for me, I don't. It's like let the Word teach us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first letter of John, we assume this is John the Apostle. There's some people that want to think that it might be John Mark, but we think it was the Apostle John, who always referred to himself as the disciple Jesus loved.
The most.
Yeah, which, by the way, I heard a preacher say one time, if I get to write a book of the Bible, I'm going to make myself look good too. Right? But he says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, we've looked upon, we've touched with our hands concerning the word of life. The word of life is Jesus Christ himself. And so he's telling us, I think in that first sentence, that first phrase before the hyphen, hey, we've seen life with our own hands. We've seen the word with our own hands. And there's so much theology packed in here,
Right.
we may not get past the first 4 verses unless we discipline ourselves.
Yeah.
He's saying that which was from the beginning. And so people will often ask, like, where was Jesus in the whole order of the Bible? There's some. In fact, there's a Christian cult. And the reason we call it a Christian cult is because they have some aberrant beliefs that actually believe it was God that created, and then God at some point became Jesus the Son.
Yeah.
And then after he died, it was actually his spirit that was resurrected. And so now we no longer have God the Father or God the Son. Now God's morphed into the Spirit, and they completely miss what the Bible says right here. It says that this word was from the beginning. So in the very beginning, we have Jesus. Interestingly enough, if you turn over to the book of John, he starts in a similar way,
Yep.
right? Go ahead, Britton. You've already got it.
I just went back. I was looking back and reading what he said. But he says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. So yeah, and then he continues, I love verse 14. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth.
So similar to his gospel, he's telling us Jesus was there in the beginning. Jesus was the creator. Jesus was God's instrument creating. I don't know if Jesus is God, but I should have said God the Father. And so we've heard him with our own ears. We have seen him with our own eyes is another way to say it. We've touched him with our hands. He is the word of life, the life that was made manifest. That's another way to say the word became flesh. We have seen it and testify to it and proclaim to you the eternal life that was from God the Father and made manifest to us. So he's just rolling in the fact of, I'm an apostle. This is true. I saw it. I heard it. I touched it. It's for real.
Yeah.
And this is what he's proclaiming.
That's good. So just for the people listening, whenever we turned to the book of John, there's more in here that we can continue with. But why in a Fight Club setting do you deem it important that we all turn to the book of John rather than just that one guy turning in his Bible there?
Oh, because whenever I hear something, this is like when you take notes in class, those of us that take notes, when you hear it and then you write it down, there's something in the memory recall and the making it real when I write it down.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept, I would say, is let's all go together and learn this principle about Bible study, that the best commentary on the Bible is the Bible,
And I love, too, that if I would have said, I think it says somewhere that the Word became flesh and the Word was God and it was with God and all. And what I love about the Fight Club is you don't just get to say stuff like that.
No, because there might be a guy that doesn't know that.
Where's it at?
Yeah.
Find the address, take us there, let's read it. And I think that's an important piece too. But that was just like a little sidebar. If you're leading a group, that's important.
Well, there was something that I'm on so many group texts, and some of them I love, and some of them I'm like, how do I get out of group text hell?
You talking about the meme account that Adam and I just send you?
No, I like that. No. I was just about to say that the one I'm on with YouTube, one of you guys just quoted Kathy Keller.
Yeah, that was good. What
And
did she say?
do you remember what that says? Because you were like, oh man, I love that so much. And it was a great.
Very good.
I'll find it because I don't want to misquote
Well, it was a great Bible study concept
Yep.
that's worth repeating.
Absolutely.
And I'd read the same book,
Yep.
and that had jumped out to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to
good.
use that. And I'm sure she borrowed
Oh, you
from
find
someone.
that. You're talking about taking notes. One time in college, I had my shoulder surgery, and I'm left-handed, and I destroyed my right shoulder, and I convinced the student assistant center that I was right-handed, and they sent somebody to all my classes to take notes for the whole semester, and I just had to sit next to them.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
man,
confession.
listen, I can't. It causes me pain. This is for football. Okay, you get this? I
Yeah.
need you to take my notes,
Yeah.
dweeb.
I can't do it with my right hand.
Yeah.
I'm left-handed.
So Kathy Keller said in one of her books, what is clear in the Bible interprets what is cloudy.
Sweet.
That's
So I would say, because both of you and I
Mhm.
thought about John chapter 1 so quickly, the way he said it in John chapter 1 makes this because you could read this in the ESV or the CSB or any translation except the Message, and be like, what is he saying?
Yeah.
What is he saying?
Yeah.
And he's using this, like he is mobilizing the language to try to describe something that is completely other than our language.
Yep.
So to somebody, myself included, you read the first 2 verses of 1 John and it could be cloudy.
Yeah.
And so what's clearer
Mhm.
to me is John chapter 1.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I love the that life was revealed and we have seen it and we testify and declare to you the eternal life that was with the Father and was revealed to us. And I just love that just reminder that this God that we serve, this God that we're looking to be in relationship with, he was the initiator. Like he's not this God that's sitting up there like just pointing out and giving us all these rules, but that he initiated in coming in flesh to redeem and to bring us back into relationship with him. And I just love that because you look at the confidence that John is writing with, and I wonder how much of that would be altered by the fact if Jesus never showed up in flesh and walked with these disciples. And I think that that's just, for me, when I look at these people and when I'm in 2022 trying to figure out what does it look like to follow Jesus, is it worth it? Is this just a big fairy tale? And then I look back to these people and the writings of the dudes that walked with him. And it's like, no, like this mattered. Like this dude came, he was revealed, he was with us. This is why we do it. This is why we testify. And I think just that reminder, because often it can be hard in 2022 sometimes with the world that we live in. And I think that that's John's reminder, because if I'm not mistaken, he's essentially, 1 John, he's writing this letter to people that have left the church, I think was kind of
struggling Christians.
Like this is kind of like the
believers.
purpose behind this letter. So I think that's a good word for us in 2022 is like, why would I keep following this Jesus in a world that's actively trying to get rid of him? Because that life was revealed and we have seen it and we testify and declare to you eternal life. And I think that's such a good reminder for me of the moments when I'm like, man, why? Why am I still doing this? Because I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's been revealed to me and I just got to remember those moments. So that's a part that sticks out to me too.
So we were talking about the beginning, postseason depression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because I'm a big baby and because I care, right? Within 24 hours, within 48 hours, I had 3 or 4 massive encouragements that reminded me of why I coach, and none of them had to do with coming in first. And they're private in nature. I can't share all of them. One of them was a text from a mom who I've coached all of her kids, both her sons and her daughter through 4 years. So, I mean, this is a soccer family, and this is her last kid. And there was this long text, and none of it had to do with everything you've taught him about soccer. It was all about stuff that matters. Then I had an administrator at the school reach out to me to say, hey, just so you know, this is what the soccer program means outside of the playing field and outside of the classroom, and shared some stuff with me. And this is what John is saying. He gives us his purpose. His purpose is that we would have joy, that he would have joy, and that we would have joy. Because he says in that tail end that you too may have fellowship with us, and indeed fellowship with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And we are writing these things so that our joy, including you, may be complete. So it isn't, we're the disciples, and we saw him, we touched him, we heard him, and now you do what we say.
Yeah.
This is an invitation for you to be a part of the joy that we've experienced, and that all of our joy may be complete.
Yeah.
So he's saying this is why we do what we do. This is why he wrote the letter. This is why we follow Jesus. This is why we want you to follow Jesus. And it's the big idea.
Yeah. I love because what you're saying here was this piece of like, this isn't just this is what we've seen and what we've done, but I think the key part for us to remember as well, and this study note points to it as well, is God made Christ known. Human hearts and minds require God's aid to see his truth. The Son, the second person of the Trinity, has always existed alongside the Father, but then it points to Matthew chapter 16, verse 17, and I love this because this brings it into a whole new
Give me
picture
that
as well.
address again.
Matthew 16, verse 17. And this is when Jesus meets, or he's not meeting him, but they're with the disciples, and he asks Peter, "Who do people say that I am?" And Peter responds, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And I love Jesus' response: "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven." And I think for us as believers to remember that if you know Jesus, it's not just because of good preaching. It's because he revealed himself to you.
That's good.
And so I think that that's a good reminder sometimes for people that are struggling spiritually, or maybe they're not being fed, or it's the consumerism has stopped and they're struggling with finding Jesus, remembering the fact that he revealed himself to us. And it's not just the fact that Pastor Johnny V showed up and laid down a good one and now I know Jesus better. It's because Jesus revealed himself to you in that moment. And so I think that's a good reminder for me, is it's not just like the reason I can know Jesus is because just like John says here, he revealed himself to us. And that's why we have access. I think that's good. I don't know, Adam, you got any thoughts over there?
Yeah, I mean, so what pops out to me when we first started reading this is, and it goes along with the purpose, but there's a sense of urgency within this letter. Mm-hmm. Because typical letters, New Testament letters, there was a greeting, there was salutations, this is who I am. He gets after it right away.
Yeah.
Verse 1, he's in it.
Yeah.
And it's because there's that sense of urgency there. This is important. There's a purpose behind this letter. It's like you were mentioning, from my understanding, this letter is written to the struggling believers, that there's all these false teachers that are out there. And he's saying, no, remember what we've taught you.
Yep.
And we've taught you because we've seen it.
Yeah.
We've touched it. We've been there. So yeah, I just love the sense of urgency that
that's good.
I've never noticed that before, like the difference, but we'd already gone back to John. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if this is consistent with John, but the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, I often tell people those are essentially four biographies by four different guys. Mm-hmm. John is frustrating because we don't have a Christmas story. Which he doesn't waste time with, did Jesus resurrect a bird? What was he like when he was 12? Hey, let's get back into Ancestry.com. He starts out, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, there was this dude named John, he came baptizing, and then one day Jesus showed up. Yeah. He's just like, I don't have time for Christmas time. Right. I don't have time for your winsome little tradition stories. I'm just getting right to the ministry part. This is what he did. And so it's the same type of urgency that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then also to go to something that you had said, I just like, well, we do this in Fight Club all the time. And so it's interesting how God will direct conversations. And so maybe this is for somebody, but we were talking about, or joking about Begg, Alistair Begg, great preacher from Scottish preacher from Cleveland, Ohio, Parkside Church, and another preacher, they're both on stage during worship. One way that I've heard Begg begin a sermon, to your point, in his prayer, he'll say, Lord, as we open your word, will you open your word to us? Mm-hmm. Lord, as we open your word, will you open our hearts to what you want to say? And it's this, we're opening the word and we're being faithful, but he's got to open it to us. Yep. And so I was in a conversation just a couple weeks ago with two people relatively new to the faith, relatively new to church, and they are growing rapidly. But they were sharing a frustration that they didn't know the Bible that well. And so they're like, what can we do to know the Bible well? And I found myself saying, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
I was like, Are you in Fight Club? Yes. Are you go to women's Bible study? Yeah. Do you come to church as often as you can? Yes. Do you read the Bible on your own? Yeah. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it's not going to happen faster than God's going to open it. See, many of us read the Bible just to get all the content, when I think it's better to read the Bible with, hey, God, what do you want to say to me? Because it's not about getting Bible knowledge and knowing a lot.
Yeah.
It's about, God, as I open your word, would you open me to your word? Would you open your word to me?
It's a huge part of my testimony. I think back to when I first kind of became a Christian. I did the thing for like 7, 8, 9 months. And I remember I found myself at a young adults discipleship program, and I was just getting, like, for lack of a better term, pissed off all the time because they're asking questions I don't know the answer to. It's taking me forever to find these places. I was just mad. And I remember I had this moment, like different things happened, but I had a 14 days in the middle of this training where everybody else was off doing something, and I was sitting in this office. And I remember I sat down with a friend of ours, John Boyd, and I was like, man, I'm so tired of not knowing what's in here. Like, everybody knows the answers except for me. And I'd read the Bible, I'd read it cover to cover, I was just in it. And he said, Britton, do you ever let the Bible read you? And he said, because that's when everything will change. And I remember from that perspective, and that's such a heady, what does that even mean? Such a John Boyd statement, right?
But it's true.
Right. And it was a lot less about, I got to read the crap out of this thing every day, chapter by chapter. And it was just simply heart posture, which is a ghetto term for dudes listening to this. And I know that feels weird, but it's entering into the text with the humility of, I don't want to understand God. I want God. I don't know how to explain this, but so many of us want to be able to put our hands on God so that we can understand it and put grips on it and make it black and white.
Good luck.
And it's like, what if you enter into it with a humility of, God, will you help me understand what you're trying to do in and through me? And as that began to happen, and it took a while, and I still struggle with it sometimes, but there's been so much that sticks because God made it practical. He knew how I needed to learn it, and it wasn't reading it 11 chapters at a time trying to figure it all out. But that was a huge piece for me, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it was time in it, but it was also, why do I want to spend time in it? And I think that when the heart is there, God does what only God can do. Because at the end, dude, I'm not a reader. Yeah. I wasn't. Yeah. And now I think you're similar to that in your testimony and stuff. But
I heard a pastor one time say, do you, well, he said it differently. And I didn't like how he said it. Sorry, because I'm a pastor, but he was like, he said, don't read to finish, read to change.
Yeah.
I think there's value in both.
Yep.
Yeah, there's something to be said about being faithful and reading the Word. That's my part.
Yeah.
But my purpose in reading the Word is for God to change me.
Yep.
And when you have that posture, I love that statement. It isn't about you reading the Bible, it's letting the Bible read you.
What?
You good?
You good, bro?
I heard a clicking.
Clicking.
It's not a grenade.
He thought it was a grenade. His military background.
I figured it was Benji. I was already.
He's looking for the egress, and what are we gonna? How do we combat this?
I love it. No, I might have said that cloudy, but that was definitely a statement that changed everything for me with God's word and how I viewed it. And then, he continues into verse 3. What we have seen and heard, we also declare to you, so that you may also have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. And we are writing these things so that your joy may be complete.
Now, does yours say your?
Our, my bad.
Our? No, because that's the CSB says our.
Yep.
Because I actually wrote in my Bible because on the study note, because I have a study Bible.
I have a study iPad.
Yeah, that's awesome. The meaning of our there that it says in the study note is not the disciples' joy. It includes the reader.
Mm-hmm.
And in some senses, it includes God.
Yeah.
Into this community, into this fellowship so the plural there, our, yes, so you could say, hey, I'm writing this so your joy may be complete, but he's including himself. It's also our joy together, and it's our joy together with God.
Yeah. So for you guys, when you see that, our joy may be complete, when you think about complete joy, what comes to mind in that sense of when you're reading that or you're thinking that through the lens of the gospel or different things like that? What's something that comes to mind with that?
I think it's at least when I read this, it's a big picture thing. It's not that every moment is going to be filled with joy or that life's going to be happy all the time, but a complete joy is that we spend eternity with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so we'll have complete joy then.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can have joy in all things now, right? Because there's a difference between joy and happiness. It's not just this emotion, this feeling. But yeah, for joy to be complete, I see that as we get to have complete joy because we're going to spend eternity with him.
Yeah.
It's forever.
Yeah.
It is complete because it's in him and he is complete.
That's good. Yeah. I think about like when Paul's writing in his letters and he says, it's with joy that I write to you. And then he's in like potentially
Prison.
the crappiest situations of all time. And I remember finding myself often still to this day, man, what did Paul have figured out that I don't? Because I don't know if I'm writing, it's with joy that I write to you while I'm in prison on 3 meals, 3 hots and a cot or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just it's an eternal perspective.
Yeah.
And so many of us live, I said this last night to our students, but so many of us, our discipleship journey is built in this treasure hunt of blessing rather than resting in the blessing of the fact that we already have received the gospel. And so many of us are looking for the next blessing that God might have for us rather than understanding that the greatest blessing of it all, having an opportunity to be in relationship with him, that's complete joy. Your joy is complete in that moment. And everything else is just kind of like the sprinkle.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't need, after you've given your life to Christ and you've surrendered everything to him, you said yes to Jesus and you have surrendered to his gospel, like your joy is complete. And I think the key piece that you hit on as well is that difference between joy and happiness and stuff like that.
I redid a deck at my old house last year, and somebody I'm very close to was working on it with me, and he's been through a lot. So much so that, I mean, the world would tell him, like, it's okay if you're angry, it's okay if you're sad, it's okay if you don't ever want to do anything again. And I just asked him, like, dude, how do you keep going? How do you continue to serve, to serve with kids? Like, how do you do this? And he just brought up the fact that it's a big picture thing. It's not, you can't look at every moment in your life or every little scenario, but it's a big picture. It's a complete picture of this joy, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I think of when I look at this, that our joy may be complete. Well, life here may be really difficult and really hard. That doesn't change, but you can still find this joy in what you're doing, and God can still use you, and you have complete joy no matter what.
That's good.
So I'm so glad you brought this up. Because as I was thinking about joy, as Adam was talking, there's a TV preacher that doesn't need to be named that is famous for writing a book about living your best life now. Live your best life now. I think I may have given it away, right? Live your best life now. So much so that I've noticed with the kids that's become like a tagline, like on memes. Look at this guy living his best life. It's all about live your best life. And
well, I actually have a whole road message that I wrote in a revamp up because it's became such a thing that I'm like, this is your best life, and it's about something else. But
the Christian message is opposite of that. It says, living your best life now is not as we interpret it. Living your best life now is actually living in light of eternity.
Yep.
That's the joy. Knowing that what I do down here is only in preparation for living my best life then. And so you'd said, hey, what does Paul know that I don't know? He actually told us. And it's in, here we go, Philippians chapter 4. Hurry up, take your time, as somebody says. Philippians 4, starting in verse 11. He says, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And then that famous verse ripped out of context by athletes all over the world.
This isn't about football?
No, it's not about football.
Shit.
Yeah. Verse 13.
Got that wrong the whole time.
I can do all things through him who strengthens me. The I can do all things through him who strengthens me has nothing to do with I can do anything. You could say through the strength of Christ, I can survive anything.
Right.
I can endure anything. And he says the secret is learning to be content.
Yep.
That's the secret to joy. It's not about comparison. It's not about envy. It's not about coveting. It's not about trying to be something I'm not, trying to appear better than I am. He says, here's the secret. And Paul knew it all. He'd been beaten. He'd been chased. He had been stoned. He'd been shipwrecked. He was bit by a snake. I think if I was bit by a poisonous snake, I would probably die of a heart attack, even because I hate snakes, right? But he says, here's the joy. It's contentment. Being content with loving God and being loved by him, being strengthened by him to endure anything. And I don't think it's like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I got bit by a snake. This is so cool.
Yes.
I mean, it's not stupidity,
Yeah.
But he shares with us his secret, and that is finding contentment in Christ.
So we can take this bunny trail all we want because our podcast, we can do whatever we want. What do you guys think are the hindrances to contentment in today's society, today's church?
I think that we don't trust God. We don't trust God, and we don't trust God to give us life on his terms, to live life on his terms. In fact, the note in the ESV says, the secret of living amid life's difficulties is simple, trusting God in such a way that one can say, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. This doesn't mean that God's going to bless whatever we try to do. It's got to be read in context. Its emphasis is on obedience to God and serving God and serving others. If I know there's a purpose to my suffering, it's a lot easier if there's no purpose.
Yeah.
If I understand that my purpose is to bring glory to God with whatever I'm enduring, and that, suffering can look different for different people. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be relational. It could be, there might be someone who's suffering in a marriage, or suffering with bad parents, or both. And he's saying that the strength that Christ gives us is to endure and to be content, to live life on his terms, and that requires trust.
Yeah. Good. What do you think?
I can speak for myself, and I think I'm selfish, and I have a short memory. And so it's easy for me to forget all of the blessings and all the things that he's done for me when I'm in the midst of whatever I view as a tragedy or just lost my keys or what, you know what I mean? Whatever it could be.
Yeah.
So I'm selfish. I want it to be all about me, even though it's not.
Yep.
And I don't remember all the things, all the great things, the blessings that I have.
Yeah. I think something too for me, because I'm with you on I'm selfish as all get out. I forget things. And I think too, sometimes in the midst of those difficult times, I limit God to my ability to understand my circumstances. And so like in the midst of that hard time, I can't see how God could ever work through something like this. So then I'm just like, well, then he's not in this, and this isn't good, and this can't never be good. And I think so often that's where people find themselves is they struggle so much with being content with where God has them because they don't truly know the God of the Bible. They just know the God that they've created in their own mind or that they can understand. But I think the more time you spend in the text, the more time, we think about the book that comes to mind for me is Job. Right? Job trusts God and all this stuff. He's amazing, right? And then all this stuff, and Job starts believing the lies, starts listening to his buddies, and he finds himself, and then God drops the mic, right? Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? I don't even know what that means, but like,
so, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
That's a better one. I like do you observe the calving of the does? It's like, all right, you got me. All right.
You win.
But and then at the end of that, Job is humbled back to the fact of, oh, wait, I'm not God. And I think sometimes for us, for me, when I go through hard times or I face difficulty, I limit God's ability to move in a certain space based off my ability to understand how he ever could. And I think that's limiting my ability to trust God. That's limiting my ability to be content in a difficult circumstance because I can't see how this could ever be good. But then there are always those moments and those reminders years down the road where you're like, oh, crap. If I would have known this was going to come out of that, I would have been way happier when I was going through it, right? And I think that sometimes the best thing we can do in the face of difficult circumstances or hard times is get to know God more, spend more time with him. But so many people get in those difficult circumstances, and the first thing they do is they put God at arm's distance. They start to distance themselves from God, distance themselves from his word, distance themselves from his church, distance themselves. And people pray, and there's different hard times and different stuff like that. But I think often our default thing is to do what Peter did, right? And just, I'm going back to who I was, arm's distance. And the whole time, Jesus is there waiting on us. And I think that if more of us, because I think that's the key, that's what Paul had figured out, right? He knew where to go with his difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think that a part of that is, where are you going with that? Are you trying to do it on your own, or are you continuing to get to know him, continue to trust him, even when it doesn't make sense? But I suck at that. So that's not like a you should do this. That's a I'm trying and will you try with me type thing. So
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you guys, because the what does it say? What's it mean? Now what's it mean to me?
Yep.
Like a practical handlebar right there with contentment is gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
You said gratitude. When I'm reminded again, and Pastor Tim has been so influential, excuse me, in my life and in all the lives that he's touched within our church, and really discipled that into me, mentored that into me. You know, he gives me credit for a lot of things that I've taught him. I've learned way much more from Tim. And one of the simple things, he's older than me by 10 years. I need to remind him of that. But gratitude
he doesn't listen to this podcast.
No, but his wife does and tells him everything, right? Gratitude is a secret to contentment. Back in that Philippians chapter, and it's funny, we're in 1 John. We haven't got out of the first 4 verses. But Paul, after he gives that, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, the next, I'm not going to read them, but the next 10 verses are all about gratitude. He starts thanking them for their financial support. You know, you spoke of Job, and, you know, real quick, the story of Job, it's probably the oldest book in the Bible. He loses everything. He loses all his stuff. He loses his kids. He loses his servants. He loses his health. And it's this big game. I say that loosely, but it's God and Satan having it out. And Satan says, the only reason Job loves you, God, is because you made him wealthy. And he says, okay, do whatever you want to him. You just can't touch a hair on his head. You can't kill him. And so then it's all about this stuff that he loses. And then some really bad friends show up and try to tell him, just curse God and die. And he refuses to do it. There's a dinosaur in it. Leviathan is in it. I highly recommend Job, right? But when he gets to the end, after God does that, you know, he answers him, where were you? Or he says, who is this that darkens my counsel? In other words, I'm God and you're not. And then he answers, or he asks over 100 questions that no human being can answer. And science still hasn't answered.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, that drop the mic moment you were talking about, this is Job's response. I'm going to read it in Job 42. You can turn there if you want to take your dose of your own medicine. But in verse 2, starting in verse 2 of Job chapter 42, Job's answer to the Lord, I know you can do all things and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. He's saying, God, you have purposes that I don't understand, and that you're God and I'm not. No purpose can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. That's gratitude.
Yeah.
Right? Then here, this is his posture now towards God. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, there was no sin in Job that caused all of this, but he still repents. He says, my attitude was wrong. And if anyone had a reason to be selfish, it's Job. You've lost everything.
Yeah.
If anyone could say, woe is me, and I wonder sometimes if God didn't give us the book of Job so that in our hardest moments, we wouldn't say, yeah, it's still not as bad as what Job went through.
Right.
It's still not that bad.
Yeah.
Right. And he finds gratitude. You're God. I'm not. You know things too wonderful for me to know. And in the midst of this, now his restoration comes through the rest of the book.
Yep.
God gives him twice as much as he gave him before. And that doesn't always happen it does happen for us too. No matter what we suffer under the new covenant, under the law of grace, under the law of Christ, no matter what you suffer, and I'm glad this is being recorded because if something horrible happens to me, I'll have to eat my own words. No matter how bad it gets in this life, God is going to pay me back for eternity. Not that I deserve anything, but eternity with him, that joy, that's when it's complete.
Yeah, that's the restoration.
And that's the restoration.
That's good. I love whenever we talked about the book of Job and the Legends of Old series with the students and just being able to journey through that and that piece at the end of that restoration and being able to tie that back to Jesus and in the midst of, so yeah, I love it. I think just that complete joy piece. We took that bunny trail because I think it's one that that often is where people find themselves. Is we live in a culture that, and I don't think people do it on purpose all the time, but our whole entire life, essentially, if I was to be very generalized, and in the Western culture is built around building comfort on this side of eternity, and we'll do whatever it is to find happiness.
Well said.
That is our whole life. That's why we work. That's why we want promotions. That's why we get married. That's why we do all these things.
That's why we have retirement plans.
I want to be comfortable on this side of eternity, no matter what it costs me. And it's like, man, what a contorted vision of what life should be. And then I think that from a Christian perspective, our job is I will be as uncomfortable as it takes on this side of eternity, no matter what it costs me, for the sake of bringing as many with me as I can when I get to the other side.
Yeah.
But I suck at it, and I'm sure everybody else listening might too. So
If you don't, let us know.
Yeah, you can have the podcast.
Yeah, you can have it. Yeah. Well, John Piper wrote I can't remember, it was a book, article, sermon, probably all the above. Man, how does he get so much done? Anyways.
Ghostwriters. Oh, what?
No. Exactly.
Sorry.
It went viral because he was talking about a whole generation of American people, Christians, that work so hard for that. And their whole thing is, when I retire, when I retire, when I retire. And then they spend their retirement collecting seashells.
Yeah.
And it's like,
oh, that was that passion.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your whole point of existence, to live this whole life so you can retire and then spend the last years of your life walking on a beach collecting seashells? You're living for the wrong thing. For the wrong thing.
Because the beach sucks. No,
I love the beach.
No offense.
I love the beach.
No offense.
Yeah.
Sweat and sand.
Yeah, but still,
don't
I mean,
work together.
to your point, I'm so glad God's given us a mission. He's given us a mission. Our job is to execute the mission. You know, even the purpose. I got to be careful because I heard someone say this. If you want to know what Christians are struggling with, look at all the best-selling books.
Yep.
And many times talk about Christian books. The best-selling Christian books usually don't even touch it. Like there was the worldwide, the purpose-driven life. And listen, I'm not a Rick Warren basher. The man loves Jesus and can preach the paint off the walls, and that church has done amazing things. But there were so many people that went to the Purpose-Driven Life book, the Purpose-Driven Life movement, and I think they missed the purpose. We all have the same purpose, to love God, love people, and make disciples. That's the purpose.
Yep.
Nothing else ultimately matters. To do that in my home, to do that with my kids, to do that in my church, in my community, that's what it's about. There's your purpose.
Yep.
Everything else is just kind of sub-purposes.
Yep.
And you know, you had all these people. I think my purpose is to make a lot of money and collect seashells. I think my purpose is to buy as much hunting land as I can so I can get the biggest buck in church. And what?
But I go to church.
Or my purpose is to make sure that my kid has the best 3-point shooting percentage of anyone here and gets a college scholarship. And then does what?
He's 5'10".
He's a 5'10" white guy.
Yeah.
Give up now, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know. Any other thoughts, Adam? You have a purpose-driven
That was a
life.
rant.
I mean, because this is Fight Club style.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So then how do we combat against that? Because we all fall into it. Right. So what do we do to combat that? And I think we get a little hint of it here when he talks about fellowship and being in community. And I think that's a huge part of not allowing ourselves to fall into those traps, because I have people around me that can start to see that in me and are willing to call me out on it.
Yeah.
Which is part of why you should be in a fight club or a Tab Women study or something like that.
Or Foundry.
Yeah, because I'll call
Or
you
Foundry. Yeah. We talked about that last night at Foundry, actually, how the Tabernacle is your church, and here at Foundry, this is your community.
Yep.
So we want you to be there on the weekend, but we also want you to be here because this is your community.
Yep. It's the same reason we tell men to go to Fight Club, women to go to Tab Women. That's what Foundry is. And we've worked really hard to create that space, that this is not a church within the church. This is a community within the church. But anyway, sorry.
So yeah, I just, as we're talking through this and like, these are the dangers, then what do we do about it? And I think one thing that comes to mind is being in community.
Yeah, community.
Spending time in the Bible, obviously. And
I think for me, in my life, the things that I've had to do to ensure that I continue saying yes to Jesus is putting myself in spaces that the only way this is going to work is if I say yes to Jesus.
Yeah.
Putting myself in situations where I'm going to be uncomfortable. This is going to be difficult. That's why I believe that Hope married me, right? That was her biggest yes she could have ever said to Jesus was. But no, I think for me, it's putting myself in situations where it won't be comfortable. It won't be easy. It will be difficult. I think about starting this young adults ministry at the Tabernacle. I think it's a need. I wasn't super fired up at the thought of doing it, but as I was praying and stuff, it was, but do you trust that I'll do it? You can be there, but I'll do it. And I think but those are the things for me. I'm not saying everybody needs to do everything. For some people, maybe it's reading your Bible, whatever that might be. But I think it's figuring out the most difficult yes in your life to say and saying it is how I continuously find myself back in that space. Because there are things that are easy for me to say yes to, right? For me, if I'm being honest, going to Fight Club's the easiest yes I can say. I love hanging out. I love the Bible. And the dudes in my Fight Club are fun. Like, I have a cool Fight Club. John Cruz, Jesse, like, they're just homies. Like, they're dudes that I would hang out with.
You got Jesse Bruce?
Oh, it's a squad.
I'm a Jesse Bruce fanboy, but don't tell him.
Yeah, he'll hear you. But
dang it,
the man needs a hat. I think we got him one.
Oh, I got him a hat.
But
I got him a hat just to tick off people that don't have a hat.
The greatest member of my Fight Club is John Cruz. No free shout-outs, John. Now you have to come on the podcast.
Ooh, I've heard about this.
Oh, JK's the man. But I think for me, like, that's an easy yes. For some dudes, that's a difficult yes. It is hard to get into that. That's probably what you need to do. For some people, it's serving. Man, like, I'm going to have to restructure my whole entire life if I want to serve in that ministry. Then freaking do it. And watch how God continues to shape you, mold you, churchy word, sanctify you in those spaces. And I think that's, for me, that's how I continue in that, finding contentment, finding joy, is putting myself in situations where the only way I'll be content is if Jesus is a part of it. And so that's mine. I don't know what about
That's
you.
a great way to live too.
Yeah.
Well, you would share.
I don't always do it. I don't want people to think that I'm just me and I'm just this serving God all the time. No, there are a lot of times where I lay on the couch too.
Yeah. I know, because I'll be like out serving God and you're texting me about random football stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm out here working. What do you, no, I'm not, I'm playing. You work harder than I do.
John's favorite dad joke, anytime I call him, what hole are you on? That's how he answers the phone. It's raining and cold.
I'm like, hey, what are you shooting? Are you keeping it in the small stuff? Yeah. No, but just even in that, I mean, it isn't that God doesn't give us, like, I don't want to paint this picture that, oh man, we're like Nacho. We just, we've got church duties, dead guy duties. I need some new duties.
Nacho.
Yeah. But that was a Nacho Libre.
Watch it.
Oh, I need to watch that again. It's been so long.
Benji, have you seen Nacho Libre? Praise God.
Oh, dude, it's one of the required watchings in our house. And it's intensely biblical. Yeah. Nacho is a domino, finding his spiritual gift in the wrestling. But God does give us, you'd said it probably, 15, 20 minutes ago, when you talked about, he gives us these little glimpses. I vividly remember when my wife and I were attending church in Charlotte, North Carolina. We went to an E-Free church, and this unbelievable Bible expositor pastor, Jimmy Callum Jr., shout out to Jimmy Callum, was preaching the word. And in his intro, he was talking about how he'd just been at a pastor's conference in San Diego. And he was talking about the beach. He was talking about fish tacos. He was talking about the beauty. He was talking about the climate, and it was cold at that point in Charlotte. It was
what you thought was cold.
Yeah, what I thought was cold. It wasn't Michigan cold. Yeah. But at the time, it was like he painted such a beautiful picture, to the point where I almost leaned over to my wife to say, I think he's going to tell us he's moving to San Diego. I mean, it was so. Yeah. But then he talked about becoming home, back in the pulpit, back to what he was called to do, and finding meaning in that. And he said something to the effect, and I'm going to butcher it right now because I didn't plan this, but he said something to the effect of, God gives us those little, like, roadside exit ramps to give us a taste of what the end is all about, where we'll spend eternity. He called them little eternity glimpses, and which probably 10 years later, my oldest child, we were having a deep conversation. It was with Isabel about something, and everyone else was already in bed, and she's like a junior or senior in high school, and it was something disappointing that had happened in life. And she's going up the stairs, and she stopped, and she said, "Dad, sometimes I just don't feel." And she was talking about Michigan. She was talking about Buckley in particular. She was like, "Sometimes I just don't feel like this is home." And I remembered that, like, God brought that to my mind. And I used just 1 minute to say, you'll always feel that way because this world is not your home.
Mm.
God gives us those little glimpses of passing joy, those little wells, like an oasis.
Yeah.
You know, that this journey is worth it. You're not going to fully feel like you're home or your joy is complete until you have that eternal, unvarnished, no sin fellowship with Him.
Yeah.
And so with that, you can endure anything, right?
Good.
And yeah.
So what I heard was there's going to be fish tacos in heaven.
Praise God.
Probably.
Hey, Benj, you don't have to answer, but I'm curious. For you, what is that contentment? That question we're asking, maybe you haven't been listening. But like for you, how do you actively battle like that of like, how do I be content in following Jesus as a 14, 15-year-old? Is there anything?
Just keep going.
That's good. Keep going.
That's a man of few words.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a shirt.
So look, if you're discouraged,
Yeah.
just keep going.
Yeah. Trey,
Keep it pushing.
yeah, keep it pushing. Keep going. There's the worst thing you can do is stop. That's good. That's wisdom. You're the man, Benji.
Dude, did you tell him to say that?
No. We need to get camera on Benji over there and keep track of him. No. That's good. Just keep going. Just keep going. Well, I think he was actually telling us to go to the next verse.
He's looking at the clock like, hey, I got places to be.
Love it. I'll read. You guys think we can finish this? Or, Benji, what's our time at? Where are we at? 1 hour? Oh, dang. Maybe we shouldn't keep going.
We got like 2 more hours.
Well, we can keep going. The Bible's not going anywhere. So, I don't know. An hour is a good podcast, in my opinion.
Hour's
so.
good. So you're saying you want to pick up 1 John 1, part 2 some other time?
Yep, some other time.
Adam, are you available for that?
Sure.
Yeah, let's
just
just
keep
be
going,
our little
man.
segment. Yeah.
Just keep it pushing.
That's good. I think that's a great way to end the podcast for the people listening to this. As we look at 1 John chapter 1, I think we see a picture of the fact that Christ has been here since the beginning. He's been revealed to us. He is ever present. He is available, and He is the only thing that will complete your joy. And so as believers, our encouragement today came from a 14-year-old, man.
Just keep going.
Just keep going.
So your joy may be complete. 15, man.
My bad, bro. All right. Square up. No.
Square up. Oh,
Maybe at
about to
285.
throw down. Yeah. So there's 2 other things I need to point out before we shut it down. One is I love how this broke down because one of the things that happens in any small group study, and this is just the 4 of us, right? The 3 on camera, the one that's off camera that said the most brilliant thing, is not just in letting reading the text and letting the text read us, but we also learn how to read the text.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've heard from so many men, because I haven't been in I did go to one women's Bible study. They asked me to teach something, so I can't say that, but I'm not a regular at a women's Bible study, is that in the process, we learn from one another how to read the Bible, and we hear different perspectives.
Yeah.
Like even when you say, okay, how do we find that joy and contentment? I went with the study note, but it was Adam that went gratitude. It's like, oh, dang, I forgot that. It's about gratitude. That's how our joy is complete, is gratitude to be in the fellowship with you and with God. So that was the first thing. Wanted to say, and so that's just a shout out for why, if you're like, well, I don't want to go to one of those because I'm not good at studying the Bible. Well, that's why you go to those, because you'll learn how. You'll learn how. And then the second thing is we have to give a shout out to our executive producer. Wait, is he 2 executives? Wait, is Benji the producer and he's the executive producer? Matt Hughes.
Yes. He's the executive producer.
So the executive producer. Bro, look what he got us.
I know it. I know.
Yeah, look at that.
It's beautiful.
We have a glow. If you're a listener and not a watcher, we're trying to bump our watching views.
Yeah, look at us. Who would have thought?
Would you want to describe it for him, Britton? What we're looking at? What's our backdrop here?
Yeah, we got a beautiful black wall designed by yours truly.
A black wall with a sheet hanging on it.
With some moving blankets. But on the other side of that black wall is a T neon sign. And now we got some lights on the floor, which are cool, shooting up some blue. This isn't as dark of a podcast. Maybe this is a picture of our hearts. We are continuing in joy.
Our matte black souls have a white cross.
Absolutely. But it's a sweet little tab logo we threw in the middle of it. Every day, it's becoming a little less JV. Sooner or later, we'll be varsity.
Easy. Are you talking about this, JV?
No, junior varsity. Sorry.
It's a little less like
well,
John.
shout out to you.
No,
shout out to you.
No. I didn't even
You
realize
actually
that.
ordered that light, so well done there.
Shout out to Hope for having a cool
Hope
light at our wedding and then saying, just order it through this place.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah,
no, it looks good.
brightlight.com. It was an easy website.
It doesn't it isn't hot like it.
No, I don't know what it is. It's like rubber. It's cool.
I don't know.
Nice.
Am I getting some sort of radiation?
Comes down.
Is there like asbestos in there? Or something?
No, but Adam's got his thing in his phone that'll protect you. So
what's in your phone that'll protect me?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
You are Batman.
Keep going.
You are Batman.
There's
You got a
nothing
gadget?
in my pocket to protect you.
What is on your phone that will protect me?
Nothing.
Tell me about it.
Cut it off, Benji.
Until next time, Tap Family, this is John, Britton, Adam, and Benji signing off.